Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Now, I want to do a video talking about how it can feel like nothing else is working, how nothing's working on the journey. Now, this is something that I encountered many times, countless times along my journey. That's without all the setbacks, without all the back to square one. There's a lot of times where I just felt like I wasn't going anywhere. You know, there was no progress, that's how it felt. It felt like I was coasting a lot, right? And that can happen even when we are putting in the work, right? Let me explain. Because so often I hear that, oh, Sam, I'm putting in all the work. I'm reading the books. I'm doing the disputing. But I can't quite get there. What's the next step? How do I get to that next bit of progress? Well, let me tell you, because there's a lot of subtle things that often keep us back, keep us stuck, holding us back, right? Let me give you a quick example. The reluctancy to go out of our comfort zone, right? So you could be writing down your belief work, okay? You could be changing your irrational beliefs to the rational alternative, to healthy preferences, to be more flexible, okay? We can be doing that and writing that down, and that's great, all right? But quite often, we're reluctant to take that step, to take that behavioural step, right? Because that comes with discomfort, right? So let me give you an example. Fear of rejection. So you can write down in all the notepads in the world that if I was rejected, I could stand that. It wouldn't be terrible. It would be bearable. Blah blah blah. All the ways you dispute it. I mean, you go into some more detail, of course, when you dispute. That was quite light disputing, but you can go into all the disputing that you want, right? But if you don't change your behaviours, if you don't show your brain that what you perceive isn't scary, right? When you start viewing fear as an illusion, right? That's when things start to change. Okay? So what do I mean by the reluctancy to take that behavioural step, to change our behaviours, to take that step? Now, shame attacks, for example, right? So you might have the fear of rejection, but you're so scared to actually be rejected, you know, to physically feel it, to experience that. And I'll give you some of the shame attacks that I've did. I'm pretty sure you're aware if you watch my videos. But I walked down a busy high street, right, with a cap on sideways. Now that's not something that I'd usually wear, okay? So I felt uncomfortable. Nothing wrong with wearing a cap sideways, but I don't usually wear that, okay? I don't usually dress that way. I went into a boot store and asked very loudly in front of a queue that I was after some extra small condoms, right? And a few heads turned, looked round. I thought, you know, you could tell people were grinning, people were smirking, right? And that felt uncomfortable. But these are behavioural changes, the leap that we take to change our behaviour, to actually experience that, right? Because if you're scared of rejection, but then you're absolutely petrified to face that fear, then you're not going to make much change. Okay? Another exposure that I've done, I've been on a bus, right? A really packed bus in rush hour in England, which is very, very busy. Never really a seat free. Now, I remember saying very loud the stops that we were at, okay? Probably about 10 to 15 stops, and I would just sort of say them out loud, okay? That felt uncomfortable, right? But these are the sort of things that I had to do to get myself out of that comfort zone, okay? I don't do them all the time. I don't do exposures all day, every day, right? But just that exercise then, really feel that discomfort, okay? If we want to make change, if we actually want to make behavioural changes towards our fears, these are the kind of things we have to do. Albert Ellis talks about them a lot, shame attacks, in his book. And they're very, very helpful, okay? To see what we perceive as so scary isn't scary at all. The only thing that's keeping us stuck is our belief, our perspective, okay? That's such a key point to remember. But going back to the title of the video, right? When it feels like nothing's working. Here's a key point to remember. View the recovery journey like a marathon, not a sprint. All right, you can compare that to many other things as well. For example, with me, I've just started learning Spanish, right? I'm interested in other languages. Now, I used to think, can't be bothered with that, that's too much effort. But I thought, you know what? Let's learn Spanish, right? And I'm viewing that as a marathon, not a sprint, right? I can't get it all nailed down in a month, right? I can make progress within a month, and I can certainly work harder, right? But I ain't expecting to have it nailed down in a month, right? Same as recovery. It's going to take as long as it's going to take. Me learning Spanish is going to take as long as it's going to take, right? Adios. I was trying to say that at the end of the video. I just couldn't wait to say that. But that's going to take longer, right? Reading books, okay? You can't just fly through the books. Yes, you can make sure you're reading more and more a night, but you can't just read it like a sprint, right? Because often when we have that mindset of it being a sprint rather than a marathon, we tend to rush things. We tend to force things, okay? And then we often go to 0 to 100 catastrophic as well, because you're saying, right, I've had 2 sessions with Sam, why am I not recovered? Well, I'm going, hang on a minute, you've had 2 sessions, right? It took me 2 years to actually start embodying unconditional acceptance, to actually start seeing the changes in my beliefs, right? With all the behavioural work I did, with all the different perspectives, the gratitude shifts that I did, okay? It took me 2 years to start seeing change. 2 years, right? That doesn't mean it's going to take 2 years for you. It could take less, it could take more, right? There's no blueprint, there's no set deadline on how long it takes, okay? But that's to give you a rough guide. It took me 18 months, 2 years to start seeing long-lasting habitual change. All right, just remember that. So when you're coming into sessions and you don't know why you haven't got all nailed down, all figured out, all down to a T, why haven't I done it all, right? Because it takes time. There's so many stumbling blocks along the journey, right? There's so many setbacks. It's a bumpy ride. It's an emotional roller coaster. All right? It's not a linear, flat route. Okay? We all wish it was. We wish it was just like that, sound, sorted, right? And we wish it was a lot quicker. We wish it was an overnight fix. Excuse me. Of course we do. Understandable. But the hard-hitting reality, the hard-hitting truth is that's not the case, right? We have to view the recovery journey like a marathon and not a sprint. I can't hammer that home enough. Okay, see my analogy and the comparison with learning a language, all right? I couldn't go to a Spanish class with a French book trying to get it all sorted out, right? And I couldn't go to a Spanish class with a Spanish book and it all nailed down within a week, right? These things take time, these things take change, okay? Just remember that. Now, what other drawbacks did I have? There's a lot of sort of whining going on. I talk about that a lot in my videos. A lot of whining, why me? A lot of victimhood mentality, okay? And that was because I'd have a glimpse of freedom. I'd have a glimpse of recovery, or just things that wouldn't trigger me, or that used to trigger me a lot, wouldn't trigger me as much. I'm thinking like, bloody hell, yes, I can see that differently now. And I would just crack on with my day regardless of whether I was triggered or not, right? But then all of a sudden, I'd get slapped with a new trigger, right? And that trigger felt completely overwhelming. It could be a new theme, right? Where I felt like I couldn't cope. A new real event, false memory in the past. And I thought, no shit, this one's real. I'm the exception. I got no chance of getting over this one. All these things that I was telling myself. It could be a new thought at an unwanted time. A new fear, anything, right? OCD moves and morphs around. That's what it does. That's its nature. Okay? So me whining, me moaning, me complaining, me venting, me confessing, that was a 0 return investment. But when I'm on coaching calls with people, I get that, right? That's understandable because that was me. I was in your shoes. But if you have a call with me, I'm very tough love approach, okay? Compassion, of course, but there's a lot of tough love. And the reason I am like that is because I needed that for my journey, okay? I see what worked for me. I see what worked for others. Now, me cradling you, me comforting you, Me saying, oh, if I went on a call with you and said, yeah, OCD is the worst thing in the world. I fucking hate it. Yeah, it's terrible. What are we going to do about it? Oh no, we're going to be stuck forever. It's terrible. Look what it's done to our life. It's completely, it's nightmarish. It's hellish. Worst thing in the world. Unbearable. I can't stand it. If I said that, right, what hope does that give? Because I could easily say that, right? OCD is fucking tough. It's resilient. I get that. I experienced that firsthand. But the reason I give tough love is because that's what OCD sufferers need, okay? We have to be very strict with ourselves, with discipline, with not reassuring ourselves, not seeking reassurance from others, okay? Not doing compulsions, not going into the avoidance cycle, because I did that so often and I was stuck for years like that. Now I know that doesn't work, hence why I'm really against going into avoidance. It just doesn't work. It's a complete waste of time. And I say this on a lot of my calls. If we look back at our life, and you're not going to be saying, you know what, I wish I avoided more. I'm glad I avoided. You're not going to be saying that, right? OCD is taking stuff away from you, right? The restrictions you're living under are getting smaller and smaller. I talk about that a lot. You might think I repeat myself about that, but that is so true, okay? So when we do compulsions, when we avoid, when we seek reassurance, we're given the keys to OCD and off it goes, driving us around, and we're just sat in the back seat like a passenger. Okay, so we have to start taking the tools back for our life, taking the keys back, making the decisions. Okay, now these decisions that we make, for example, now what I mean by that is choosing not to avoid, choosing not to do a compulsion. You could be avoiding seeing friends, seeing family members. You could be avoiding going to work. You could be avoiding exercising. You could be avoiding learning a language. You could be avoiding education. You could be avoiding reading the books. You could be avoiding disputing, doing the exposure, right? You could be avoiding so much stuff, okay? So the decision that we would make would be, right, I'm no longer going to do that. I'm no longer going to avoid, okay? Now that is going to come with so much discomfort, so much panic, so much shame, so much guilt. That's all going to ramp up, right? But we have to look at long-term recovery. Hence why recovery is a marathon and not a sprint. If we did everything based on how we feel in this exact moment, we wouldn't make any progress long-term, okay? It would all be short-term pleasures, right? And I'd eat all the chocolate bars in the world because I like chocolate. But I know I don't eat that many chocolate bars because I know long term that ain't going to benefit me, right? I might put on weight, I might get unhealthy because I like exercise and I like running, right? So if I just ate a shit ton of fish and chips, load of KFC, I know long term that ain't going to help me. But short term it tastes good. So you say, why don't you drink? Why don't you eat it? Same with drinking beer and things like that. In moderation, I love it. But the reason I don't do it every day is because look at the long-term effects, right? And we got to treat recovery like that. So when we are avoiding, when we're doing compulsions, when we're seeking reassurance, when we're confessing, right? We're getting that short-term temporary relief. We're getting rid of the unwanted feeling. But long-term, we're doing more damage, okay? Now what I mean by more damage is we're giving the power to OCD, right? We're letting OCD call the shots. We're fueling the OCD fire because as soon as you vent, as soon as you confess, you get that unwanted feeling off your chest, right? But then OCD, sneaky as it is, it morphs, it moves, it finds something else, it lashes to something else, it ramps up the heat. It takes it up a notch, right? So you go, all right, he's not scared of that anymore. I'm going to go for that, all right? You're going to take it up a notch. There's no boundaries of OCD, okay? And there we go. A day later, less than that usually, a couple of hours later, down the confession route again. Down the venting cycle again. And off you go, right? So you know that it's long-term, it's a zero return investment, okay? It does no purpose for our recovery journey. I can't highlight that enough. We have to be willing to experience discomfort now. We have to be willing to drop that internal control, okay? Now, these are rational needs. These are rational musts because the goal is recovery, right? So the rational must is I must not do compulsions because the goal is recovery. Okay, you're not going to recover by doing compulsions. It's as simple as that, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to tiptoe around it. The hard-hitting truth is you're not going to recover by doing compulsions. Okay, we have to view it like that. So just remember, things will take time, okay? The key point of this video, OCD recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. Same as me learning a language, same as me reading a book, same as me trying to get to a certain time whilst I'm running, same as me learning a subject, right? Learning completely ran out of ideas, but there's so many things. Maybe trying to renovate a house, right? Maybe trying to invest financially, okay? Things take time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you're interested in our one-to-one calls, webinar service, WhatsApp groups, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. There should be a WhatsApp link in the bio. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then please do so. And if you do leave a comment, I'd happily read any suggestions for me, videos-wise. Please leave a comment and I'll take a look. Anyway, you take care and I'll speak again. Bye-bye. Adios.